Welcome to Everything on Everything. For today's topic, we are looking at language. And because language is a very broad topic, we will focus only on a few attributes. We are specifically looking at how language influences your life, how certain words you use rewire your way of thinking, and also how the language or languages you know sometimes determines your personality. However, before we continue, click on the subscribe button to support this channel. And also, please do check out the Express and Encompass podcast, which is available on Spotify and Anchor. As you all reckon by now, here on Everything, we enjoy defining things and giving you a good understanding of what the main focus is. So let us define language. Language is the principal method of human communication, consisting of words used in a structured and conventional way and conveyed by speech, writing, or gesture, or in simple terms, language is a structured system of communication. Simple, right? I know. The world has almost 195 countries, which then consequently means that there are many languages being spoken globally. There are approximately 7,000 languages spoken today. However, because of some political and social issues, some languages are just more of a household name than others, or better yet, international languages, or languages that everyone has to know in order to enable communication all around the world. Namely, English, which is regarded as one of the most important languages that an individual should learn. Followed by English are languages such as French, Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, and Russian. These are just some of the top spoken languages in the world at the moment. And knowing these languages actually gives you a different perception on worldviews and influences you much more than you would think. But don't worry, we will get right into that. I bet you're also wondering to yourself, what about the other languages in the world? Don't they also matter? Well, of course, they do. But research shows that some languages do not have certain words to describe certain things, which hinders speakers from being able to communicate effectively in that specific language. So, let's discuss how the type of language you speak controls the way you think. This may sound like some scientific statement, but some people are actually accustomed to this for hundreds of years now. There have been studies that can prove that the language we speak can influence the way we see and experience the world around us, which leads us to linguistic relativity, which is the idea that the structure of a language influences the way speakers of that specific language conceptualize the world. This term was invented by an American linguist could easily remember them so effortlessly. In addition, more recent experiments on the same phenomena have shown that Russians who have different words for light and dark blue can more easily familiarize themselves with different shades than English speakers can. For example, scientists have been able to note the amazement of the Russian brain as the color shifts from light to dark blue, because for them, this color has drastically changed. But then with the English speakers, not so much. They simply see the color blue getting a little darker. Our brains will show the same results for red shifting to orange because we have the words for these two colors. Do these tests prove that the brain of the Russians, Zuni, and the English are all wired differently? Surely there seems to be a connection between linguistic groups and cognitive processes, because the more words you know that describes the language, the more your brain can better tell the words apart. And because linguists love using colors for the experiments, it provides a connection between perception and language, using something scientists will find very easy to control. Scientists Brent Berlin and Paul Kay looked at how different languages describe colors. Their aim was to find out if all languages approach colors the same way. They wondered if there was a similarity in the way that we as the human race describe colors and talked about colors. They found out that there was an innate difference in how different languages have restrictions and how many basic color terms a language could have. They discovered 11 basic colors that are in all languages. These are white, black, red, green, yellow, blue, purple, brown, pink, orange, and gray. Here's a brief example. In the Swahili language, there isn't a specific linguistic term for the color orange. They, however, use the fruit to describe the color orange. An orange in Swahili is machungwa, and when asked to describe the color orange, they would say rangi ya machungwa, which translates as the color of an orange or the orange color. Whereas in English, we can definitely describe the fruit and the color separately without having to relate one to the other. These types of factors tend to influence our way of thinking differently from other languages, because though a person may be bilingual, for instance, knowing English and Swahili, they would have to describe it differently to a Swahili person than they would have to an English person. So knowing many languages does not cause a significant change. It just gives you a broader view of the world from different languages. A little fun fact. Did you know that if a language only has three basic colors, which would be black and white, the third color that will be added will ultimately be red, and the fourth and fifth color will always be green or yellow, and in either order, the last one will be blue. The basic colors of the color wheel, right? Note, however, that just because these colors are always added in this order, it does not possibly suggest that color is always naturally wired into our brains, as opposed to the linguistic relativity of it all, which suggests that it is the opposite. For example, how we describe color dictates how we perceive them. Language in itself is quite crazy. In the English language, there aren't that many gender-specific references compared to several other languages. In the English language, people and animals are only defined as he, she, her, and him. However, we tend to notice how other languages have gender references for a lot of other things. For example, in the German language, spoons, forks, and knives also have a masculine and feminine and neutral term, respectfully, and the whole logic for this is quite inexplicable. So, does the use of gender references on inanimate objects have an effect on how the speakers of these languages think and perceive their world? It sure does. A 2002 study observed how native Germans and Spanish speakers describe certain objects. The objects that the researchers chose were of opposite gender references in each language, like a key, for instance, which is masculine in German and feminine in Spanish. The native Germans describe the key as hard, heavy, and rough, and the Spanish speakers describe the key as lovely, little, and complicated. Crazy, isn't it? Language tends to restrict us, especially when we are unable to find certain linguistic terms that describe our emotions or anything really, and it only creates communication barriers between individuals. Linguist and writer Susita Hardin Elgin is one of the many who created language to help people find words. Hardin created the feminine language called Lahadin, which would then make it easier to describe a female worldview. Well, women speak almost 30,000 words a day, whereas men only speak 1,500 words. I'm guessing it's because they always have to repeat themselves. Haydn wanted to create a language where women can express themselves without having to use ambiguous statements. So the idea behind this was that speakers of La Haydn could transparently express not only what they're saying, but the trustworthiness in what they're saying. So basically, a short addition in what they're saying to reflect on the confidence of the speaker. Haydn wanted to stop women from always having to say, "What I meant was," when men questioned their statements. Evidently, it is clear that the language you know influences your life subliminally because you do not realize how much or how little you know until you are to interact with a different language other than your own. The fact that there are restrictions or limits in one's language does not always mean a negative outlook. Maybe we have not yet figured out the words we need to describe, or maybe our personalities and mindsets revolve around these limited or countless words that we have in our languages. Some food for thought right there. Well, there you have it, folks.